For the Elder Scrolls 6 to become a classic, it needs to be the future. It's 2023, not 2011. But I believe Bethesda could learn a lot from an unusual source. Character customization, personalization, and character freedom. A revolutionary feature I created. I'm bored of Starfield coverage already. Millions have loved, hated, and languished in the game. And we all know the deal with it. The coverage has been more expansive than the game itself. But for me, the next Bethesda game coming up is more important. And of course, I'm talking about the Elder Scrolls 6. So in this video, I'm going to solve once and for all what Bethesda needs to do to create a truly great entry in the series that can, like a phoenix, rise out of the tremendous shadow of Skyrim. And to do this, I'll start with the most important ingredient for a great Elder Scrolls title: atmosphere. You see, atmosphere is everything for an Elder Scrolls title. Whether it's the feeling of entering the Imperial City for the first time in Oblivion, or venturing through the snowy mountainous terrain of Skyrim, the memorable Elder Scrolls experiences, the sort of experiences that have kept games like Skyrim in the gaming consciousness for a decade post-release, are defined by a unique sense of atmosphere. It doesn't matter where it is, Hammerfell or High Rock. The questions we should be asking is, does the soundtrack capture the dusty isolation, the lingering mysteries and mirages of the desert, or the rugged medieval elitism of the Bretons? And most importantly, does it create more questions than it gives answers? You see, instinctively, I understand that many of us want an Elder Scrolls experience that gives us answers about the many mysteries running through the story. We want a resolution, but as with life, anything that comes too easily loses its value. Like the One Piece, mysteries like the disappearance of the dwarves will only hold their resonance with ambiguity. In this regard, I believe Bethesda could learn a lot from an unusual source: From Software. From has managed to create some of the most complicated, nuanced, mysterious, and unimpeachable lore. Mainstream logic might tell you that shrouding your story in mysteries so vast that they require effort to decipher will alienate audiences. But in fact, the opposite happened with From. They gave audiences just enough up front that users became obsessed with navigating the vast mysteries of the Soulsborne universe. Whole communities were created, exclusively dedicated to the lore from Demon Souls to Elden Ring. Some even created grand theories linking each title to each other. Now obviously, to be clear, I'm not saying that Bethesda has failed on the lore front, nor that they can replicate exactly the From model. We all know about the vast lore community that popped up in the years following Skyrim, channels like Shoddycast dedicated with millions and millions of views exclusively to Bethesda lore, but I believe in the next title they could take this storytelling to another level. And when talking about taking things to another level in an RPG, role-playing mechanics can't be ignored. Role-playing is everything in an Elder Scrolls. We all remember the feeling of picking up Oblivion, Morrowind and Skyrim, and being able to choose our own race, chart our build, and develop our skills through sheer repetition of effort, not experience cheats. On a personal level, I remember the excitement I had to start new playthroughs with different builds in Skyrim, and the relief I felt when I was rewarded for this hype. As in Elder Scrolls games, whether you're switching between an illusionist or destructive build or sword build, you are presented with a distinctly refreshing experience. But my worry with Elder Scrolls 6, a worry somewhat confirmed by Starfield, was that Bethesda would forget that this was not the 2010s. Even if they feel that building on Skyrim without drawing from the rest of the industry is the Bethesda way, no one else does. At the time, Skyrim in particular was first in class, a game changer. But it's 2023, not 2011, and the gaming landscape has changed, and it will progress even further when Elder Scrolls 6 arrives by the end of the century and dawn of the new age of humanity. And no game represents that progress, that speed of change, more than Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 offers a level of choice and flexibility that leapfrogs the standard established by Bethesda, and then teabags. Baldur's Gate seeks to answer well-known questions like, is that flammable looking wall actually flammable? And the answer it gives is yes. Now, I'm not saying that Elder Scrolls 6, with its likely tremendous scope, can match the depth of Baldur's Gate, but it can learn from its character customization, personalization, and character freedom. Because for the Elder Scrolls 6 to become a classic, it needs to be the future, not a shadow of the past. I also personally thought the title could benefit from a revolutionary feature I created: a language system. How better to make players feel like they're playing a role or a race than to give each type a distinct language and culture. Not only this, Bethesda should center quests around the cultural status of the characters we have picked. I'll give you an example of how this might work. Mog, my orcish character, decides to travel into a mysterious desert enclave in Hammerfell. Unfortunately, he can't speak the local language and so has to find a translator. Because of this obstacle, the local quest givers switch their dialogue to a more formalized way of speaking, which shows their hesitancy when dealing with a clear outsider. As you engage in more quests and language skill milestones, their trust builds. And with this trust, not only do new questing options open, but the dialogue becomes more relaxed and casual. And I know this is a stretch, but maybe it could also be that if your language skill is especially poor or your translator disreputable, you can be deceived by translation or given misleading information. Just imagine if you're given a quest in that desert enclave to hunt down a group of bandits harassing the town. When you approach the bandit cave, they attempt to communicate, but your temporary translator companion tells you what they want you to hear and not what they actually said. And to your surprise, when you venture into the cave and defeat all the bandits, you find a note on a leader that reveals a very different story. You see that the enemies you just defeated and slaughtered mercilessly weren't bandits, but rivals of the local leadership who broke away because of a dispute, and you never even had the chance to get their side of the story. I know I'm getting carried away here. This is a lot to take in, but you could even narrow down the system to include certain abilities, weapons that cannot be used, and have languages on a regional or local level. And even if I am getting carried away with small quests, this level of depth is what Bethesda should be aspiring towards with faction questlines.